dialed in this morning?
Kat, it's me. I'm always dialed in, and it's my duty to make sure you all are just as fired up.
Alrighty. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time to dial in. Welcome back to another episode on the last week of May. I'm Collin O'Callahan.
I'm Ryan Curtin.
And just because the weeks fly by, it doesn't mean that these episodes don't feel like they take forever, because I know 1 week just feels like an eternity.
Without
honestly.
football, I mean, what is there? I guess there's the NBA playoffs.
I mean, we got a
NHL.
Game 7. I mean, the Eastern Conference Finals and hockey, which, I mean, whatever.
Is it the same? Is it the same as football season?
No, it isn't, because OTAs are in full swing. Minicamp starts in a month. Training camp dates get announced pretty soon. I didn't realize that they were like that late into July, by the way. Like usually, I feel like they're getting like later and later and later, like with each passing year. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, June 1st is a few days away, which means a few teams might be willing to trade a player or two in the coming days.
Wink, wink, nudge,
we'll
nudge.
see. But we do have a lot to unpack, so let's get right into it. The first thing on our docket is obviously, Josh Jacobs being arrested on 5 different charges. He was released from jail, I want to say Wednesday. No formal charges have been added yet, but an investigation is still underway. He was arrested for domestic abuse, which included strangulation of a victim. Where do we even start?
Yeah, well, I guess we start with you can take the player off the Raiders, but you can't take the Raiders out of the player. So, no,
Yeah.
I mean it's not looking good for Josh Jacobs.
I mean, I guess like the only thing like I could really say is that like there hasn't been a trial that has started yet. The NFL, when it comes to an investigation, at least this early on, you can't really express too much other than the fact that like, we'll see what the NFL does with their due diligence. But I mean, my guess is it's like, depending on how this all goes, a suspension is definitely going to be possible, especially when you've got these accusations like to that severity.
Yeah, 5 different charges too on 5 different counts. I mean,
it's like, considering like, I don't know, whenever I think of something like this, I go back to like the Ezekiel Elliott suspension back in 2017. He was only accused of a crime, wasn't actually charged of it, but the NFL, they still gave him a 6-game suspension. So my guess is probably Josh Jacobs is probably going to fall around that same range, 4 games, 5 games, 6 games. When I saw the fact that, strangulation was one of the charges, I'm like, okay, this might be one that'll get like an added suspension or whatever. But again, I don't think we could make too many comments on this just like as of right now. I think like as this like goes further along, then we'll have more concrete evidence as to like what the NFL should do.
Yeah, no, and it is also interesting to see like how the NFL punishes different players differently, because I always go back to Rashee Rice last year, because he was only suspended for 4 games?
Something like that, yeah.
So, I mean, you would think it's weird, because based on that, you'd think that Josh Jacobs would get less of a sentence.
Yeah, and then Kareem Hunt back in 2018, the video gets leaked out. He lied to the team about it. He gets cut, and then when he tries to come back, he gets suspended for 8 games. And yet with Ezekiel Elliott, there wasn't any video evidence, yet he still got the 6-game suspension. So, yeah, the NFL doesn't really do that well when it comes to consistency. Tyreek Hill in 2019, you got the evidence, but wasn't formally charged with a crime, no suspension. So it's like, again, I think with the NFL, it's just like depending on how this goes and depending on how it all plays out, a suspension is definitely the most likely of scenarios and a heavy fine. But again, I think it's just we got to let everything process out, and I don't think we can share too much on it until we get more information as it goes along, because it is a developing story.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're not going to hear anything probably for at least another month.
Yeah, but let's transition a little bit to Derwin James becoming the highest paid safety again with a 3-year, $75.6 million contract extension.
Much deserved.
Yeah. So you take this one.
I mean, I don't think this is really a surprise to anyone. I know people will say that he's not the best safety in football, and
he's top 2.
He's definitely top 2. And I don't know, I'm not going to say, well, he's not number 2, but he is very clearly like top 2, if not top. I mean, top 3 at the absolute lowest, you'd think.
Right.
And just the way that he plays, he's able to do it all on defense. He's great in pass coverage. He's also, they put him in at linebacker. He gets a few sacks every year.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
A great tackler. We've seen it with
Awesome
Travis Kelce
blitzer.
all the time. Great blitzer.
Yeah.
It made sense. And he really is like the anchor of that defense, too. He's been a key part of it since his rookie year all the way back in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah,
the fact that he's re-signed, it's not a shock. And even the number, I don't think it's really a surprise to anyone just because of how important he is to this Chargers defense.
Yeah. I always think back to like earlier in his career. He was literally on the verge of being like one of the best what-if players because a lot of injuries were starting to pile on earlier in his career. And then he finally started to get back on the field again, and he played more than a handful of games. And then you saw like what made him one of the best safeties in that entire draft class coming out of Florida State, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And the results have paid off. He's definitely top 2. It's either between him or Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
Whichever one you pick, that's up to your discretion. I think we know where he's going with that one.
Yeah, I'd say Derwin James. I don't think – I like Kyle Hamilton. I just don't think he's quite as much of a utility knife as Derwin James is.
Yeah.
I think Kyle Hamilton's great, but I don't think he can do everything to the level that Derwin can.
And it doesn't matter like who's running that defense, whether it's Brandon Staley or Jesse Minter or whoever the new Chargers defensive coordinator is this season. Chris O'Leary. He's going to be a huge asset to whatever defense you've got. And it's funny you brought up the Travis Kelce and like his history with him. I just remember back in 2022, him picking up Travis Kelce and just body slamming him like it was WrestleMania. I'm like, good Lord.
Yeah, no, that's a big guy. And I think like one of the biggest, issues that people have with Derwin James is people think that he can be a dirty player because of tackles like that.
But you could say that with anybody.
And like for the most part, I think he's just a physical player. And I think like that sort of energy and drive, you don't really see that from a lot of players in the NFL anymore.
Yeah. I'm going to look this up real quick. I want to see like how each safety is like getting paid right now. So Derwin James right now is obviously the highest paid. And then you've got Kyle Hamilton, and then you've got Kirby Joseph, Antoine Winfield Jr., Budda Baker. So, like, you look at this list, and you're thinking to yourself, like, how could Derwin James, like, not be one of the top 2 best in this class? And then, like, I mean, Antoine Winfield Jr., I watched him a lot, going to a lot of Bucs games, but, like, I've seen Derwin James do exactly almost everything that Antoine Winfield Jr. can do, and Kyle Hamilton. So, yeah, Derwin James, he's only 29 too, so this is going to be a great deal for him. And then when he's a free agent again, depending on how his play is, like early in his 30s, then you can like make the decision like what to do with him moving forward. But great extension, great locking him up. And again, I think with a new defensive coordinator in place, this is a player that you're going to need to have to establish some continuity.
Yeah, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Chris O'Leary was a safeties coach before he went to defensive coordinator at Western Michigan.
So there you go.
Yeah, so I think it's a good fit.
Totally.
It's a good fit.
All righty. So next up, we talked about this a little bit briefly last week with Quinn, but Aaron Rodgers will be back in Pittsburgh, reuniting with Mike McCarthy, but this will be his final season in the NFL. But I didn't want to specifically talk about Aaron Rodgers coming back to Pittsburgh. I want to talk about his career in general. And I wanted to bring this up, Brian. Where would you rank Aaron Rodgers on like your all-time quarterbacks list? Like top 20, top 15, top 10, 5? What do you think?
I think he's pretty safely in the top 10. I don't, know what the list would be like off the top of my head.
Right.
But I think it's very safe to say that he's top 10. I mean, 4 MVPs, a Super Bowl champion. He's had a very long and successful career, like everywhere he's been. I guess except for the Jets. Sorry, Jonah. But no, I think he's got one of the most talented and accurate arms in the NFL. His turnover to interception ratio is is it the best of all time now?
It's if it's not one, then it's definitely in the top 3.
Yeah, especially considering how long his career is. I mean, taking that into account, the fact that his touchdown interception ratio is so high is very impressive. So, yeah, I think he's a great quarterback. Would I say top 5? Probably not. But I think, top 10, maybe like at the absolute worst, top 15, like, 11 or 12, something in there.
I agree with you. It's definitely top 10 for me. I mean, Going back to my days on Fairfield University, I've been very critical of Aaron Rodgers. I literally called him one of the most overrated quarterbacks of all time. And the reason why I said that is because a lot of analysts, a lot of fans, a lot of pundits at the time were trying to put him on this pedestal with Tom Brady because Tom Brady is obviously the GOAT. There's no conversation. I don't want to hear Patrick Mahomes. I don't want to hear Aaron Rodgers or Joe Montana or whatever. It's Tom Brady number one, and then everybody else is like way further down the list. But I've always had a lot of respect for Aaron Rodgers because he does have a Super Bowl. He won that Super Bowl MVP. That season alone, that playoff run alone was phenomenal because they were the 6th seed. They beat Michael Vick, and then they beat the 1-seeded Falcons at Atlanta. Then they beat the Bears in the NFC Championship, with that loaded defense with Brian Urlacher and Tillman and Julius Peppers. And then they beat the bad boy Pittsburgh Steelers with James Harrison and Lamar Woodley and Troy Polamalu. They were like one of the best defenses in the league that year, and Aaron Rodgers absolutely torched them. Ironically, in the Cowboys Stadium, which is, pretty much his second home. But then since then, you look at what his record is like. He's got 4 MVPs. All right, that's obviously going to make him a first ballot Hall of Famer, whenever he's eligible for it. But in the playoffs, he's 7-10, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of those losses have been at home, but you look at the wins, and it came courtesy of Joe Webb, the Dez catch, Kirk Cousins in 2015 when he was in Washington, the boat trip Giants. Remember when, they decided to go to Miami before that playoff game? Then they beat the Cowboys with Dak Prescott thanks to 2 amazing field goals from Mason Crosby. 2019, he beat Russell Wilson. The year after that, it was Jared Goff. And then you got like a lot of duds just here and there. He's 1-5 in NFC championships in his entire career. And a lot of that was because of him. Now, I get it. He hasn't had the greatest defenses. A lot of them were pretty pathetic. But at the same time, like a lot of those losses, you can't necessarily leave him void of blame or whatever. And then you think of what's happened since he left Green Bay, and you've seen positive flashes or moments where you're like, this is the Aaron Rodgers I remember, but for the most part, it hasn't been completely great. You brought up the Jets stint, and then last year, just the way he got blown out in that playoff game against the Texans was just depressing. But I know he doesn't want to end his career like Brett Favre, where it's just an interception on your last pass of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I think when it's all said and done, Aaron Rodgers is getting a gold jacket. He's going to be remembered as one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. I agree with you. He's probably got the most talented arm that personally I've ever seen, outside of Patrick Mahomes, obviously, because neither of us were alive when we got to watch Dan Marino. But yeah, I think he definitely deserves his respect. He deserves his flowers. I'm just hoping that this season just does not end exactly the same way as it did last year. But unfortunately, just looking at the optics of everything, I'm not going to expect that much different, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I agree. I don't necessarily think that the last few years of his career are indicative of his career as a whole. Like, once he left Green Bay, he had that sit on the Jets. He was hurt his first year. His second year, there was all the drama with Robert Saleh and,
and Joe Douglas.
Douglas. And, the last year in Pittsburgh, again, we saw flashes of it. But, I don't, again, at this age, he's what, over 40 now, 42?
Yep.
So I don't think I'm expecting to see Aaron Rodgers go back to his old self in his final year. And going back to what you said earlier, too, about the playoff record, it's not great, but you know how I stand about wins not being a QB statistic, especially in the playoffs, given, my quarterback's reputation in the playoffs. I think that's the only thing that's really holding him back from being a top 5 quarterback, though, is the fact that he only has the 1 Super Bowl, and since then he's been subpar at best in the playoffs. But no, I mean, I think, like you said, he's definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame, first ballot, and it was a very respectable career, and I'm excited to see how his last year goes in Pittsburgh. Will it be great? Probably not.
No.
But we'll just have to see.
I mean, one thing we could guarantee is they'll be better than Cleveland.
Probably. Ooh. They'll be better than Cleveland, and they'll probably have 9 or 10 wins.
Yeah, most likely. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. When I think of Aaron Rodgers, it's ironic. 2005, a lot of people were expecting him to be the number 1 overall pick because the 49ers had it. He's from California. He'd be going back to his hometown. They drafted Alex Smith.
Yeah.
And then the Packers pretty much were like, okay, we might have Brett Favre, but we know that we need a successor plan in place, or we need a future plan in place for whenever Favre decides to hang it up, because we all know between 2007 and 2010, Brett Favre was literally back and forth. Am I going to retire? Am I going to play that fourth? I'm not going to bring up what Aaron Rodgers' record in the playoffs against the 49ers is, because that's not appropriate for this conversation, but it's just like, Alex Smith ended up being a pretty good quarterback, when he actually had a coach that believed in him and like pieces around him. But yeah I think it's a good what if story. Like, what if the 49ers ended up drafting Aaron Rodgers after all? Who knows? The 49ers would have actually won a Super Bowl in the post-Joe Montana era. So it's crazy to think about.
I agree.
But let's transition to another NFC West team.
And a quarterback, yeah.
And a quarterback. There are a couple quarterback stories in the NFC West. But, I saw on the Pat McAfee show, them talking about Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy, because McCarthy made that comment about, like, we're just two kids in a classroom, sitting on opposite ends of the room. And, one of the questions that they asked was, like, how has your relationship been with Kyler Murray? And they asked the same thing to him when I'm talking about J.J. McCarthy. How's your relationship been so far? And, the responses were pretty general. We're just trying to learn from each other, things of that nature. But I was like, okay, that's a quarterback competition that, is going to be competitive and it's going to be interesting. So I didn't think it would be too much to discuss about. This one with the Arizona Cardinals, it's probably one of the most laughable holdouts I've probably ever seen in my entire life. So the Cardinals and Jacoby Brissett apparently are significantly far apart on a new contract, because Brissett reportedly wants starter quarterback money. And I'm thinking to myself, what? You got to be kidding me. And the reason why I say that is because, listen, Jacoby Brissett has always been a decent backup. He has never been he's never been a promising full-time starter outside of maybe the first half of the 2019 season, when Andrew Luck surprisingly out of nowhere decided to retire, and Jacoby Brissett ended up winning a decent amount of games for the Colts in 2019, even though they missed the playoffs. And then since then, he's pretty much just been the ultimate bridge quarterback. When he went back to the Patriots in 2024, we all knew he was just there to be somewhat of a mentor for Drake May. And when he went to Arizona, he was going to be Kyler Murray's backup. And granted, the offense was a little bit better under Brissett than it was with Murray for those first 4 games, but you still only won one start throughout all of last year, and now all of a sudden you want a new contract. But I don't know. What were your thoughts when you saw this?
Yeah, well, it's odd just because we talked about this several weeks ago too. Like, the Cardinals are obviously tanking this year. They're trying to get the number 1 pick for next year, build up that team. They're clearly not trying to build around a franchise quarterback because, as we both know, Jacoby Brissett is not that guy. And yeah, I mean, I understand where he's coming from, saying I want starting quarterback money, because the Cardinals are pretty set on him being the starting quarterback, at least to start the year, unless they bring along, Carson Beck and have him start.
And Minshew.
And Gardner Minshew. But no, I mean, nothing that Jacoby Brissett has done has been outstanding. He obviously had the one game where he, I believe, broke the record for most completions in a game.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I think
he
so.
He threw it 70 times that
I think
game.
they still lost that game,
and I think they
though.
still lost. I think there's a reason that he had to throw it 70 times.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, he's a good quarterback. He's a passable quarterback. But is he is he worth paying starting quarterback money?
No.
No, at this stage in his career, and what he's done so far, he hasn't proven anything. He hasn't proven that he deserves that kind of money.
Exactly.
So I think that, I think that it's a little ridiculous that he's asking for that much money. But the Cardinals, they kind of made their bed and they have to lie in it now by saying, he's our starting quarterback. We're going to go with Jacoby Brissett. And now Jacoby Brissett wants that assurance that he is the starting quarterback.
Yeah, so I got the article right here. So yeah, Jacoby Brissett set an NFL record Sunday afternoon against the 49ers in a 41-22 loss, completed 47 passes, and he also produced a career-high 452 passing yards. But, how much of that was in garbage time when the team was getting freaking blown out of the water by a vastly superior football team?
A lot.
But, I'm not saying that all of the struggles last year were on Jacoby Brissett, because they had a wide vast of issues. The defense was just underachieving. The pass rush didn't produce the way that they could have or should have, especially when you signed Josh Sweat to a big deal. The secondary had massive holes. The O-line was a flat-out disaster. I mean, Brissett got sacked, the 7th most times out of any quarterback in the National Football League, and he didn't even start for them until after, week 4. So, obviously, Jacoby Brissett said, look, even with all those holes and even with all those issues and flaws, I still did enough statistically to prove that, I could be your quarterback moving forward. I don't know if he's asking for a pay raise for this year or the next 2 years or however long his contract is, but you knew what the situation was when you signed with that team in the first place. You know what the situation is going to be this year. You're probably going to be another bridge guy. You're going to give him, maybe 5 or 6 weeks to prove himself before they decide to, move on to Carson Beck or Gardner Minshew, whatever the heck the Cardinals decide to do this offseason. But, it's weird. You wouldn't expect this team to, be the worst in football because, they have decent pieces. You got James Conner and Trey McBride and Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Paris Johnson. But, yeah, their future is looking very, very bleak right now because ownership is terrible. Your head coach is pretty unproven. The GM, he's likable, but he hasn't really made a lot of moves that make you go, wow, this is exactly who the Cardinals really need. They've had likable players here and there, but it's just, yeah. I mean, and more importantly, your division is absolutely stacked.
Yeah.
Because you got 2 teams that were just in the NFC Championship and another that could very well be a conference championship contender this year.
They would have been in the conference championship had they not lost to the team that won the Super Bowl.
Exactly. So it's just you're not really in the best position here. It's okay, you don't want to report to training camp? That's fine. We'll just have Gardner Minshew start and then move on to the rookie because we don't really have a lot of expectations this year anyway. So you would probably just be, you're pretty much just expendable compared to anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean,
and I like Jacoby Brissett.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I mean, they have the options, and it's not like they're not in a win now mode, like you said. I mean, they have Jeremiah Love, but that's not enough to make a team. I mean, they need an offensive line, too.
Yeah. Well, an NFC West team that is in win-now mode, the LA Rams, because Matthew Stafford, once again, for the second year in a row, I think, has agreed to a contract adjustment. He's getting a 1-year extension that is worth up to $60 million. I think he's getting paid $55. I think that's his base salary, but with incentives, it can get to $60. I think that's the max, but, they drafted Ty Simpson in the first round. My understanding is that, we're going to keep Matthew Stafford around for as long as he wants. And then when the time comes, when it's his decision, then, Ty Simpson is obviously going to be the starter in place. But, I don't know. When it comes to this conversation, it's it could be easy to be well, how many years do you think Matthew Stafford has left in him? It's honestly, who knows? Because this team is so talented and it's so well coached and it's so promising that it's just I don't know. Depending on how Ty Simpson develops and matures, for at least I think the window is I think this year it's probably their last chance to do it before they really start to have these conversations. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, sort of like what you were saying. The Rams are in a very unique situation here where they have Matthew Stafford, their starting quarterback, who's now late 30s, 37, I believe.
Yeah.
He had concerns about an injury going into last year with the back.
Right.
Clearly didn't impact him at all.
I mean, he was almost a free agent last year.
Yeah, almost a free agent, but he came back last year, played his best football, won MVP. And, he's got a great team around him, absolutely. But, yeah, I mean, the question is, how much time does he have left? He deserves starting quarterback money, unlike Jacoby Brissett, right? Because, he just won MVP. But you don't want to sign him to a Supermax deal for, 5 years and however many millions of dollars. Just because we don't know how much time he's going to have left.
Exactly.
So it's a very unique situation. I think if you're the Rams and Matthew Stafford, I think this is the way to go about it for the time being. You don't want to lock him in for too long, but you do want him to, know that he's their guy. He is definitely their guy until he doesn't want to be their guy anymore, and then they'll move on to Ty Simpson or whoever else.
I don't want this to be a situation where it was with Peyton Manning in his final 2 years in Denver. 2014, he throws 39 touchdowns. They win 12 games. they unfortunately didn't win a playoff game. They ended up losing to Andrew Luck. But you figure like the next year, okay, new head coach, outstanding defense, quality playmakers on your offense. I mean, this is when they had C.J. Anderson and Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. They had Jacob Tamme. Like the O-line was solid. You thought, okay, Peyton Manning's getting a little older, but you haven't really seen any signs of like drop off or anything like that. And then the following year, he ends up being absolutely garbage. You know, he gets benched for Brock Osweiler, and then he does come back for that playoff run. Heads up winning the Super Bowl, but it wasn't because of him.
Right.
It was because of that outstanding elite defense with so many playmakers on all three levels. And Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware and Talib and Harris and Roby, the whole crew pretty much carried Peyton Manning to the finish line when we all knew he had nothing left. And like, I mean, that's what I'm hoping that's not the case for Matthew Stafford, because coming off an MVP where he threw 46 touchdowns, you would expect that he'd still be consistent, but there are just some things that, you know, Father Time will always throw at us that leave us a little bit stunned. But I'm not saying he's going to have a regression this year. I'm just saying it's like, you know, it could really go either way.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it is a similar situation in terms of the team around him. Like he's got all the pieces to win a Super Bowl even without his best performance. But
right.
Again, I mean, there's also a lot of good competition in the NFC West, like we were just talking about. So, you know, whether he gets it done is a different concern. But
yep.
I think this is the right move. Like I said earlier, like if he does have a bad year, then that's too bad, and you know the Rams can move on after this.
Yeah. Well, I do want to get into one more quarterback story before we finish up. Joe Burrow was dropping some bars last week, and one of them included, you know, we signed the best free agent safety, we got the best defensive tackle, got a lot of depth on the defensive line, we got everything we need in that locker room. Basically, he's saying, like, this is the most talented team that I've been a part of. We just got to go make it happen. And obviously, when I saw that, you know, I had a message, you know, our favorite Bengals friend, Olivia, and her response was, if he stays healthy, it's over for everyone. So, honestly, as I was, like, thinking about it and looking at this Bengals team and thinking, like, what it could do fully healthy, I'm like, I think the Ravens would still win the AFC North, but the Bengals are going to be absolutely better than they were the last 2 years. I don't know about defensively. Like, that's my biggest concern, but, like, listen, if anybody could lead the league in touchdown passes again this year, if he gets all 17 games in, it's going to be Joe Burrow.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Bengals have done a lot more with a lot less. I mean, that Super Bowl team from a couple years ago, they had all the pieces on offense, but that defense and that offensive line, both of them were pretty rough. You know, it was in rough shape, and obviously they ended up losing that game to the Rams, but they put up a great fight. And if Joe Burrow can play the same way he did that season, then I agree. I mean, I think that the Bengals are just as good as anybody in the league. Yeah. You know, and if Joe Burrow's right, they signed Dexter Lawrence in the offseason.
Yep.
You know, they've got a lot of depth on the defensive line. It's all true. Like, I'm not disagreeing with everything he says. But, yeah, the biggest concern right now for the Bengals is, can they stay healthy? Yeah. That always seems to be their concern, at least these last few years. But if he can, then I agree. I think that they're going to be a tough team to beat. Yeah, it's durability and health. Then you got leadership, because Zach Taylor, he's on the hot seat. If things don't go well this year, he's going to get fired, or he's most likely to lose his job. The defense already had a lot of holes on all three levels. So, I mean, this is obviously what Joe Burrow's going to say. He's not going to be like, oh, yeah, we're going to suck. This is horrible. Yeah. But I think, like, you got that much firepower on offense, you better able to win at least 9 to 10 games, or else, you know, things are not, or else this is going to be a long offseason, you know, heading into next summer. But thank you all so much for watching, everyone. Make sure you like and subscribe for additional content. We will be back in the studio one last time before we get to toss our caps in the air and graduate. But a lot of football still left to be discussed. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. So long, and happy June. Yeah,
take care.
All
righty.